The Ivy League, the highest echelon of learning, bastions of truth in a wasteland of ignorance. To many recent high school graduates exiting high school and looking to get into college, this is the reality, but I'm here to tell you a secret. This isn't the case anymore. Ivy League schools, as elite as they are, depend on their reputation more than anything, meaning that many of these schools are turning their attention away from their students and towards building their endowment funds. This has led many of these schools to become tax-sheltered hedge funds that outweigh the GDPs of entire countries. Sure, an Ivy League school is going to give you a world-class education, but at what cost? The sticker price of an Ivy League education is only going up by the year, and it doesn't show signs of stopping anytime soon. In the meantime, these schools are shrinking their class sizes, shrinking their acceptance rates, and shrinking the amount of people that they can help. The ambitious college student may begin to wonder, is there a better way? And I'm here to tell you, yes, there is. My name is Jackson Walker, and I used to attend the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I worked as an admissions representative. In that role, I met students from across the world and helped them in getting accepted to the university. Now let's talk about this solution to the Ivy League. Higher education, just like any other product, benefits from proliferation, which is a fancy word to say there's a lot of different kinds of them. The Ivy League is by far some of the most dominant schools in the higher education landscape, but that doesn't mean that other schools aren't picking up on ways to compete with them. Many of the best state schools are finding ways to compete with the Ivy League by offering the same sort of academic experience at a fraction of the cost. This is where public Ivies come in, where elites and first-generation students are on level playing field. Now, put simply, a public Ivy is a school where you can get an Ivy League adjacent education in a public school setting. According to Forbes, which put this list together, these are some of the schools that consistently have students with the highest test scores. Hiring managers typically like graduates of these schools the most, and these are places that workplaces are very excited about, very optimistic about, paying very close attention to. So the public Ivies included on the Forbes list are none other than Binghamton University in New York, Georgia Tech, University of Florida, University of Illinois, University of Maryland, University of Michigan, University of North Carolina, University of Texas, University of Virginia, and my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin. Now, why are public Ivies preferable to an Ivy League education? I'm going to preface this by saying that different colleges are right for different people, and I can't say that one is definitely better than the other, but these are just some obvious pros that exist to me. I'd also like to add too that these are generalities about both of the schools. The first component is, of course, size. Let's compare two of the schools on this list. So Princeton, an Ivy League school, and Texas, a public Ivy. Princeton has a student body of about 5,600 students and an acceptance rate of 5.7%. So the odds of getting in are astronomically low compared to Texas, which has a student body of over 40,000 students and an acceptance rate of 31%. Now, 31% is still pretty competitive as far as colleges go, but compared to Princeton, I mean, that is a world of difference. Some of the most competitive students that are maybe looking at this Ivy League would already stand much of a better chance at Texas compared to Princeton. It's also worth noting too that college is a place where you can thrive by meeting new people, having your ideas challenged. If you compare, the size of these student bodies, it's a lot more likely that the people that attend Texas are going to be a lot more diverse from different areas of the world, different ideologies compared to, the people that get into Princeton, especially with what we're about to talk about next, the price tag. The University of Texas, for a 4-year degree, is going to run you $120,000, which is a hefty price tag. I mean, that is not cheap until you compare it to Princeton. Drum roll, please. Put it down in the comments. How much do you think it is to attend the university? How much is it to attend Princeton? $320,000, which is pretty insane. That's almost 3 times the cost of attending Texas for an education that's comparable at the very least. It's worth noting that these are the sticker prices only, which means they are kind of the general cost that they associate with the education. Obviously, these don't take into account scholarships or financial aid or anything like that. But just off the bat, if you're a student that's paying straight out of pocket, one of these options is a lot more preferable than the other. If you're going to go in debt for college, for any amount of college, you would probably take on substantially less debt by going to Texas versus Princeton. Whether or not you'll get an education commensurate to pay off that debt is up to you. That's the question. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the culture. Now, again, these are vague generalizations, but from my experience, from the things that I've heard, the Ivy League is incredibly grindy. It is not enough just to get in the door of the Ivy League school. These are campuses that are constantly going to challenge you. There's a really excellent video out there, I'll put it up here, of a lady discussing her Harvard education, and she was involved in art, and she used this analogy that in order to take some of the art classes that she wanted, some of these more advanced art courses, she needed to be able to prove herself. You can't just enroll in the class just like anybody. You know, these are classes that students are competing for spots in. So obviously, how can you prove yourself as a better artist? Well, you can join one of the art clubs on campus. But in order to get into that group, again, you have to be competitive. You have to beat out other students for a place in this organization. So how can you stand out amongst those students? Well, you have to get involved in other events in the community, and you have to, you know, make yourself known to people in the art classes, and all of a sudden, it's just an insurmountable task, even just trying to get into the certain courses that you like. A lot of the times what you hear from students that undergo this experience is that it's very challenging mentally. These are places that really break you down and challenge your ability to keep a level head with this constant rejection. You kind of have to keep in mind too that students that attend these Ivy League schools are oftentimes students that have never been told no. They've never been told they're not good enough. Preliminary research that I've done, schools like Princeton, Penn, Yale, have all settled mental health lawsuits, which means there wasn't a judgment. They just kind of paid the money and the two parties went their separate ways, but kind of makes you think, you know, they obviously did not believe that going to court was in their best interest. It's important to note too that obviously, you know, any student at any school can suffer mental health issues, and this isn't a thing that's unique to the Ivy League. But of course, this is a lot of the stuff that comes up on Google when you look up these Ivy League schools and mental health challenges. Now, in my experience as a student at one of these public Ivy schools, there is a sort of option where the pressure is taken off in a way. There are definitely avenues for these students that really want to step on the gas and really want to compete. There's also just kind of availabilities for people to be. When I was in undergrad, I was involved in a ton of student groups, and a lot of them just wanted bodies. They didn't care about who I was, what my skill set was. I wrote for 2 campus newspapers. I was also a member of the boxing club, and of course I did work in the Office of Admissions. None of those things were areas that I had experience in before joining. The student experience that they want you to have, at least at some of these public Ivy schools, are you know, to learn, to kind of put yourself out there and try new things. And it's a lot less pressure cooker where you really have to compete and you really have to rat race to the top. It's a lot more relaxed, and I think I was a student that definitely benefited from that. And I know there are other people out there that will think similarly to me, because that's what I kind of liked about my time at UW, is it really gave me a eclectic background in a lot of different areas. Last but not least, here we're going to get to the question that everybody is asking: how do I get in, and what do these public Ivies want? So just because they are public Ivies and not the grand, you know, Ivy League itself, doesn't mean that these schools aren't competitive. Now, the thing that public Ivies, at least at the University of Wisconsin, the thing that we were looking for the most are not people with, you know, the highest stats and these people that have to be valedictorians and people that have, you know, sort of proven themselves, but rather what we would do is we would put applications through what we call the holistic review, in which we are sort of looking for people with a lot of potential, people with a lot of interests and passions, and people that at the end of the day will succeed on a campus like ours that provides a lot of opportunities to students. It's helpful if you have those good grades and that you are, you know, the valedictorian of your class. Really, they're looking for individuals that will succeed at their school. and will take advantage of all the opportunities that are available. There are people, admissions officers, that get paid tons of money to make sure that they find these individuals. They are peeling through stacks of applications, looking for just the right person, double checking, triple checking, making sure they didn't overlook anybody that would help their school succeed. If you want to try to aim for some of these public Ivies, maybe without some of these high scoring credentials that we'd see from these Ivy students, it's important to have a really good essay. And I do touch on this in my video about how to get accepted to the University of Wisconsin, but I'll very briefly break it down that the admissions counselors, more than anything, are looking for things they don't already know about you. Make sure that they know what your goal is. Why do you want to go to school there? And don't make it why I want to go to college. Why do I want to go to Texas? Why do I want to go to Virginia? Why do I want to go to Maryland specifically? Don't tell them it's a beautiful campus and I love the mascot and I love the football games, and they already know those things are good. Tell them why it's right for you. For me specifically, I touched on the intersection in how I was very interested in writing in English, and I was also very interested in music and the marching band. That is going to do it for this video on public Ivies, but I'm really interested in knowing what questions you have, because obviously there's a lot more depth to cover in this topic. So please do let me know down below if this video helped you. If you have any other questions about the college admissions process, I will do the best that I can to answer them. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I do like to think that I have maybe just a little bit of insight into what's going on. Thank you for watching, and like I said, do check out my UW-Madison video that's going to be over here.